Important token concepts. A token instance, whole or fraction, is a single party unit, meaning it usually has a single owner and is transacted against in a single atomic unit. Okay, translation. When you're paying $1 for a red balloon at the park, your transaction is completed when you're handed your new red balloon and you can just walk away and enjoy it. Another concept, the owner has complete control of it unless there is an encumbrance present. Translation. This means if you're the owner of a home that still has an outstanding loan backing it, it's encumbered, and you may not sell it to another party unless you pay off your loan. Tokens are meant to be contracted. A transfer on a token will not be aware of any conditions that need to be met before completing it. A token receiving a transfer request is not concerned about the external conditions in which the transfer was generated, but the token can have a behavior like encumberable, which allows a contract to encumber the token to prevent the transfer to another party until the loan or lien is removed. The token doesn't need to be aware or concerned about how it is encumbered or how it is freed. That is the loan's business or the contract. This allows tokens and contracts to interact with each other seamlessly. Translation. The owner of a home holds the property title and can transfer or sell their home to a buyer. In that process, the owner's loan encumbering the title from one bank is paid off by the buyer, who, if financing the purchase, can use a completely different bank. The buyer's new loan can simply encumber the same title after the seller's lien is removed. A token's behaviors are essentially interfaces or extensions for how the token can be used. For example, if a token is financeable, it has the ability for the owner to accept a lien representing the loan, which encumbers the token. In this case, the loan represents a contract that is bound to the financeable behavior of the token. The loan itself is a multi-party contract, with the token owner being the borrower and the financer the lender. The token and the loan operate independently. However, only the loan can remove the lien once it's paid in full. This brings us back to the important point that tokens are not multi-party contracts, or at least they shouldn't be. Mixing the two together decreases reuse and interoperability. Tokens are meant to represent value that can be included in multi-party agreements or contracts, just like a property title being encumbered by a loan contract, which defines the conditions to remove the lien from the property, resulting in the buyer owning the property outright. A token behavior can act and react to itself, or require an external actor like a contract to invoke it, or just internal and external behaviors. Technical people usually call this an interface, but you can think of an external behavior like an electrical outlet, and the thing that you're plugging into it, the contract, or even another token. But what about initial coin offerings, or an ICO? An ICO is a class of fungible token that is usually associated with a blockchain platform or product. It typically represents either a equity in a business that's behind the creation of a new product or platform. This makes the equity token holders like shareholders. Or it can be a fuel or utility that's required to consume the new service being offered. For the past couple of years, ICOs have been subject to a huge amount of financial speculation. In many cases, the company creating them had sound motives for issuing them. However, a mania built up around them, much like the dot-com stocks of the late 90s. Unfortunately, this turned out to be a demonstration of history repeating itself. Despite this, the concept of using an ICO, or perhaps some other name for them, to start or fuel an initiative is an innovative way to crowdsource and address problems like financial inclusion if implemented properly. Anyway, we digress. We're interested in how digital tokens can revolutionize business, not financial speculation. Contracts. Contracts, or sometimes called smart contracts, are covered much more extensively elsewhere. But the important concept about contracts in this context is where tokens are single party instruments, contracts are multi party instruments that can contain terms and conditions for the issuance or control over a token or tokens. This, of course, is not exactly a clean distinction.
because a token could still have a relationship with its issuer. For example, a token representing physical money is a contract between the holder of the token and its issuer that they will honor the token as valid currency. However, thinking about this token as only requiring a single party to spend the token, meaning the issuer doesn't need to approve of the transfer, and this token only has a single acting owner or party, where a contract can have multiple actors or parties engaged simultaneously, is a good way to frame the difference between a token and a contract.
An example of a contract that is separate from the token, besides a loan, can be an insurance policy or a warranty. Contracts can be very complex, like a trade involving multiple tokens from different classes. For example, a sales contract to transfer ownership of a piece of art using a certain number of Bitcoin, where the buyer transfers Bitcoin to the seller and the seller transfers ownership of the art to the buyer. Sounds simple, but it can be complicated based on business requirements like using an escrow account that will release the Bitcoin when the actual piece of art is received by the buyer. Separating out tokens from contracts is an important concept. Limiting tokens to the set of properties and behaviors needed for a digital representation of value makes them more contractable. Identity. As tokens are owned and contracts have counterparties, establishing the identity of these participants and validating them is vital. Blockchain identities are usually represented by a public key or address that is backed by a private key. However, an account is different than an identity. For example, you have an identity and can have multiple accounts on the same network or on other networks. Public networks are often called trustless, where the account is all you need to transact. But once you step up to commercial business in a serious way, you're going to run in against regulations like KYC, where establishing identity behind the account is required. There are solutions for managing corporate and institutional identities, where the institution provides their employees an identity for logging in and using applications like email that can be assigned blockchain accounts as well. When you're engaging a company for online services for personal use, you're likely using a personal email address to identify yourself. However, this really isn't your personal identity. There's still a corporation like Microsoft or Google providing it, and you might have one identity from each. This introduces a wide range of challenges, but proposed solutions have tremendous upside that we'll not get into here. Well, that's it for now. You've reached the edge of the map. Here there be monsters. There's a wealth of information out there. Now that you have context, you know what to look for. Good luck.